just think that there's probably a lot more businesses than we think, using 1099s and W-2s for a lot of customers. Right.
I'd like to see it limited to, pare it down to most of the businesses that are qualified for OSHA. That would be my suggestion, that we do for-profit businesses and the businesses with W-2 employees.
So we have one recommendation for that, and I think several recommended, continuing not-for-profits. What's the?
Because if we do the scoring again, if you want to have to like taking a request of 10,000 over or a percentage off of it, based on period. So,
Yeah, I would prefer to not offer 10,000, offer 5,000. Get more businesses, that would be my preference.
We can get to that, I think, in the next question.
Sure.
So, on the inclusion of, businesses that are, okay, so the question, I think, is, do we include not-for-profit businesses? And I'm seeing 3 nods, I can't see Sandy. So those in the agree.
I would like to make sure that we have employees that are covered. I don't know how I feel about just handing money over to businesses that don't have even part-time employees.
That would be another way to, and certainly most of the not-for-profits would not have, paid employees. It's on mine, so is that something you want to consider?
Yes.
Or would that be one of the weighting factors? So,
And where does that leave sole proprietors? Do they count themselves as an employee?
No, by
So that would
definition,
knock them
no.
out.
Your salons.
so again, that could be, you could accomplish all of that in your weighting factors.
yeah.
So, if you have employees, with W-2s, and we'll find out about the 1099s, that's, the top of the chart. Sole proprietors, perhaps next, not-for-profits, perhaps below that. So you could weight it according to, a scale.
And
Based
also
on,
to availability of funds
and to.
Sure.
We have tiers.
Funds, sure.
for availability.
Once again, we can do the percentage based on how we rank the businesses on, and that's something we can do there, like the top 10%, or, the 100%, the next 20 or 30% deal, like 80%, depending on what we get, based off of what actual funds are available to us.
Yeah, we'd have to worry about that in 3 years now, but
This one would be something we have to make sure to pay attention to.
Now, we're also gonna ask what they're gonna use the money for.
Yes,
We talked about
absolutely.
employees.
Yeah.
This last round, we gave money for people that was saying that they're remodel, upgrading. I thought we were doing it to help them pay their bills, pay their employees. That in my mind is what this money's for. It's not to remodel your business, or upgrade, get more, is it pay your bills and keep going.
Just wanted to let you know, again, that could be one of your factors as you rate these, businesses.
Do we need to come up with an actual first night, or is this just the idea right now, so we
I
can?
think this is the idea, we'll
Okay.
still need to come up,
Okay.
when we see what we're awarded, if we're awarded, and then as we determine we're getting ready to go out for another round of small business resilience grants, we're gonna have to fine tune this, but this is kind of
A broad thing. to
a
get us
broad
there.
brush that we can present for our grant application. Of how we're going to, expand eligibility, focus in on businesses that have employees, focus in on, the specific needs of those businesses. And then when we get to the point of actually, getting ready to send out applications for round 3 of small business resilience grants, we can fine tune that application
closeout date on this round?
It would generally be a year out from when the grant is submitted, so
So
I
we
don't have that closing date yet, because I don't.
We would have time to do like we did before.
Yes, we could probably do 2 rounds like we did before. And I was kind of wondering and asked the question of courtesy, whether our application form and scoring rubric was more or less onerous than other communities. We're right in with everyone else in terms of what they're asking and what we are, how we were approaching our scoring. So it was useful to know that.
I think, former Mayor Evans created that pretty consistently with what Noblesville did, and they were one of the pioneers when all of this first started.
Right.
I think that's where he picked up the rubric and the application criteria from.
I think you're right on that, yeah. I know you adopted it and adapted it from some of the other communities.
Your other points there, I personally don't think we need to increase the number of employees since we did take it to 25 FTEs. I would like to be a little more conservative and just offer 5,000 again. I realize that round 3 offers up to 10. A lot of people that I talked to this last time said that they were doing better, and they're even allowed to have more in-person business now. Because it puts a higher onus on the city if we go to a 10,000 amount and we screw something up here and we miss a mark somewhere and we wind up paying 20, 30 businesses out of our coffers, that's several $100,000. That concerns, it always goes over my head that we are $24 million in debt as a city. I realize this is not our personal money, but with the water alone, we're $24 million in debt. So when we start looking at 100,000 here, 100,000 there, it makes me nervous. I would rather rein it in and start small, and then since we have a year to close it out, to do a second round if we have money available and there's a need. I would like to be a little more prudent to start with.
And it is also prudent for cities to operate on that in some circumstances, like major infrastructure projects. Which I think would be borne out by, the financial advisors, but we're kind of talking apples and oranges here, but for this project, I think what I hear Dale saying is 5,000 max again. Is that the consensus?
I'm assuming that we're gonna have enough business to buy that 5,000 should get to the 250 mark, if we're awarded that, so.
Sandy,
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
is, I think the question is there a consensus to limit the amount of the awards? Okra will allow up to $10,000 in this phase 3 grant. The consensus, is there a consensus that we wish to limit it to 5,000? Most of
Well,
the,
if we do, like the weighted, we were talking about earlier, what if we went for the 7,500, and then as, like the nonprofits, go down, on the weighted question, those were the ones that, the city was paying for. I would think that by the time we went over our form thinking and our rating, that those that the city was paying for would come down to 5,000 less. But we would still give the for-profit businesses a little bit more in this round. Am I not understanding?
Yeah, I think she's understanding correctly. I think you guys would just have to determine if you want to do that. It would just make, it would mean your rubrics getting a little more complicated, but it's certainly doable.
you could almost say that, for a grant that cannot be funded, for the maximum cap, it would be capped at
winds up being split into 2 rounds like we did with the last money, and we went 5 and 5, then people are still going to be able to possibly get the full 10,000, just not all at one time. And that gives some time too to see where things are evolving with the COVID. But again, my biggest concern is how much we're actually putting on the city's debt load when we do something like this, and I think we have to keep that in the back of our mind. It's not like we're not going to be willing to get this money out there if there's a need. I would rather just start it.
I think doing the split of 5,000 and going back and revisiting it again, depending on how, the COVID, how COVID and how it's impacting our community, we can do another 5,000, therefore it's, 10,000 total for a business.
You can also meet, based on, did you receive a grant in the grant too? So if you haven't received a grant at all, and there's the need factor, you could weight that application, at a higher value than someone who received funding in both rounds 1 and 2, or just in one or the other. So, all kinds of options available to try to limit the amount of local funds that would be expended in this and still provide the assistance that businesses seem to still need. So, I don't know that I have a clear understanding on the 5,000 versus Sandy was suggesting.
I still say the 5,000,
Limited at 5,000?
Yep.
That's where the consensus is. And I think, there seemed to be consensus on limiting it to 25 full-time employees, is that correct?
Yeah, that's it.
Is there any other changes, just in general, that you think we should make that would be important to include in our application?
make sure it's very clear that they come in what's required, this go around. We'll have enough time for them, they have enough time to prepare, so I think they,
I was just gonna add, can we please just do like, add the documents, like, I don't wanna have to go back to, like, waiting for people to send their documentation, like, deadline,
Yep.
deadline documents, it's like, it's literally that.
yeah, that's the whole thing, turn in your stuff before they ask for it, otherwise you're gonna be like, you're gonna be eligible for it.
I would add in certainly encouraging questions to be asked, so if there is an alternate, method of income verification, like a 1099 in lieu of a W-2, if they're uncertain, to just ask, so maybe something in the application that encourages them, if you're questioning if your alternate form of X, Y, and Z is good enough, i.e. a state identification card versus a driver's license, those silly things we were talking about, that they do come forward and just ask, so that we can get their application in. If it's something silly and it's just something we didn't consider, hopefully we can just assist them through that.
Ask before the deadline.
Can you check with Curbsy too and see if they've already been an applicant this year, if they need to jump through all the hoops of providing all of that documentation again? Like their W-2, their driver's license, all of that, are they going to have to provide every piece of documentation again? If they've already been an applicant this calendar year?
So if they're reapplying, can they just affirm previous sections and add any additional? I see, that would certainly limit what you're reviewing, but.
And I would almost just say that almost might make it more complicated for just documentation, like it almost just makes it easier, just like, these people already have the documents, I would surely hope that it'd be easy for them to scan this, just like.
Well, that's true, because then someone's gonna have to go through and verify, okay, you're applying again.
Yeah.
You did or did not have all the documents, so someone's still reviewing it.
Did they add an employee? Did they
Sure,
lose an
sure.
employee? I mean,
Yeah.
I think those are, it still could change.
Is the sign still up, or have you seen
Well, and
it?
maybe just even pull their paperwork out from the other documentation and submit it with the new one, so that they don't have to jump through that hoop of bringing you another photocopy of their driver's license. I mean, we already have all of that on file, correct?
That we have on file, yes.
I guess my big thing is like, yeah, they should have, let's put the time on them a little bit, instead of taking time off us.
And make a deadline.
Yeah,
Yes,
I guess that's my thing,
yeah,
but
I agree with that.
I'm not afraid of, like, I'm not volunteering to get from work, but at the end of the day, it's like, you're still applying for a grant, like, you're gonna put it in some work, I think.
Right.
But this is the third go round, they should kind of have an idea.
Maybe perhaps a folder where they've kept a copy of all
They
the
might have some of that, if they've applied before, but hopefully if we expand the jurisdiction, that we'll get some who have not had the benefit of, being subject to that process yet, but.
And I would imagine, maybe the Grove County Chamber would, you guys would know, it's like, hey, there's a deadline, like, all the documentation, not like a little bit of it.
We
all of
certainly
it.
had issues with that last time.
Yeah,
We'll
that's a
push it
nice-
out even more.
That's a nice segue. To the last,
I was shocked how many weren't going to apply.
It was-
There were
it was
3
almost-
that I pushed into doing, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, thank you. I'm like, it's not that hard.
So
At all.
Yeah.
for the grant application, we are gonna address how we will market this, so thank you, Julia, for volunteering the chamber. Are there other areas that you think, obviously, they can contact the business,
Social media.
businesses, social media, that you're working on, have done, but.
The website, I believe you guys.
Yeah, Facebook's big.
I don't know, the newspaper again. There's simple flyers in the building now. When they come to pay the bill, they see something, or a bulletin board, or those still around. Yeah, there's a
They're
bulletin
gonna be
board in
with water
the
bills here in
courthouse.
the next week or so.
Those are big, it's not long. Well, not this one, this will be, futures.
Yeah, when you're ready to.
Okay, we're going next to, I think I got the consensus from you all on those items, and, I will write up the minutes and submit those to you, or say if there's something that, I got wrong, you can let me know. So we'll move next to, council comments, starting with Trustee Cochran.
Don't really have anything right now.
Yeah, I was uptown, last week, t-shirt shop. Mark up there, he wanted me to pass on how much he really appreciated that second check. Second direction, he was at the real shop in John for his businesses. You could tell he really meant what he was saying too, so. And he said things are picking up a little bit, so that's good to hear. He says people are starting to get out and walking in town, so they've noticed that with their stores, so he really appreciated it.
And add to that, we did solicit letters of support, from, some of the businesses who applied in earlier rounds, and, to submit as, with the application, and we got a very nice letter from several of their businesses. Cody, anything?
I was just gonna say, when is the closing time of that survey by the parks? I posted that a few places, but.
Probably it will be, we have a meeting tomorrow night, they're gonna go through them, I imagine we're gonna leave it open through the end of March.
I thought that was great, because I know people, there's a lot of people want a dog park and stuff, I think it's a great link and
We've gotten,
available.
over 100, close to 120
Oh,
responses
exactly.
now.
Yeah,
We sent out 1,100 postcards, that's better than 10%.
I just wanted to make sure
We don't
there's-
get that.
yeah, some feedback.
Social media's been big for that.
Yeah, that's,
You can just go there,
exciting.
click away, a lot of people find it more easier than
Sure.
mailing something.
Gail?
I just wanted to ask, Leanne said she had an employee, who is your new employee?
Amanda Souders.
Who is it?
Amanda Souders.
Amanda Sellers. And what is her official title?
bookkeeper.
Bookkeeper, okay,
That's what was paid under in the appropriation report too.
okay, thank you.
Sandy,
Good, thank you, everybody.
clerk treasurer Albert?
Yeah. I do tonight. Did that take you all by shock? Cause I don't talk. I will note, I think you all assume, the year was closed out and the year was rolled over. And for your information, when you roll over a year, you don't physically roll over a year. You got a nice long page with probably about 25 different items that you have to check off and go through. That has to balance, that has to equal, that transfers. It's not a quick process. And in our rollover this year, we got to, I think it was step 6 out of 20-some steps. And it stuck up and we got an error report, and it was trying to pull in receipts from 21. So we had to wait till the next day, and Keystone had to go in and fix it, and then they finished closing it for me. At the same time, the 100R was completed. The police pension form was completed. We have one person that draws a police pension. The franchise license form was completed, and the police certified salary was completed. The W-2s were done on time, and done not only for the city, but for the fire territory. And the 100 used to be miscellaneous forms, now it's NEG forms, but those were completed and sent out. In addition to that, we finally were able to, Friday night, submitted at 10/18 your financial report. So that was done. And it bounced and everything was fine on that. And even my error report come back with there were no errors. So that takes you to that part. I'm not going to try to take too much of your time, but I have something to discuss with you tonight. I don't know if all of you are aware, but I came into this position when a previous clerk treasurer resigned after an audit was done on the city of Delphi. And at that time, the checkbooks and the fund, your different funds, had not balanced for 5 years. At that audit, and there also was not a good paper trail, and there was not there was insufficient information for state board to even try to put it together. State board notified the city of Delphi at that time that they would have to come in and take over correcting the books and setting it up, and would charge for that. So at that time, and that was a wonderful lady that was in that position, but you can only do so much. It's got to be your health that takes care of you too. That lady had had enough, and she resigned. So I came in, and that's fine because I enjoy tackling something like that. And up till this point, I have thoroughly enjoyed this job. But for a long time, I've been receiving and I've been answering directly the emails sent to me from a council person. And after so long, I finally decided to copy all of you on it. And I did the mayor and our city attorney at the same time too. And I did this not only to show you the requests that I was getting, but I felt you should have that same information that council person was asking for. At the present time, you'll notice I haven't been sending you any because the emails don't come to me anymore. Most of them are going to the city attorney and some to the mayor. And at that point, I can't send my responses on to you because that's a private email going from an individual to another party. So that would not be appropriate. Recently, our city attorney was contacted concerning an issue with fire territory. And this was done without the knowledge of the fire chief or his approval. Now, the fire territory does have money in their budget for legal fees, but they don't feel that they should pay for that because it wasn't their decision. And I told him at that time not to worry about it all. It was a small amount. It would be a small amount. And it wouldn't be taken from his funds because right now we weren't taking any of the fees charged for consulting or emails from the council's budget for what this council person was doing. So I honestly think that my presence on the board of the fire territory has more to do with the issue than the council person being concerned. Because if you're concerned, there's other ways to address it. And one of the reasons I feel this is because the previous year, this council person was the liaison to the wastewater department, and yet he had never received a phone call or a visit to his plant. And I know last year, Sandy was my liaison, and she came into my office and spent quite a bit of time with me one morning. And over 2 hours, I know, and I don't know exactly how long she was there, but I know over 2 hours, and asked tons of questions. I also know at different times, Cody has been up to the city building and has asked me questions about different things that go on in my office in a conversation we had one time. Spencer Kingery has been in my office, whether it's late at night or during the daytime, and has asked questions. And that's the way it should be, and I'm glad when it is that way. In February, it was determined by the council that I would transfer money from the code enforcer line item to promotional in order to pay for the business owners that were not eligible for grant money. We wrote a check on the 9th, late in the afternoon. But I was asked if I had done the transfer, and I said I had not done it yet. But I also explained it was permissible with state board to always be negative. It can be changed when the transfer is done. The city attorney received an email stating that I was violating a council's order and that I had no right not to do the transfer. I never once said that I would not do the transfer. I did not say that. That was not my intention. But it ended up being 3 emails back and forth to get this situated on a day when I was busy working on financial and working on training a girl. And it was all unnecessary and a waste of time because a simple phone call could have been solved with all of this. Plus, we wouldn't have involved the city attorney. The checks were written on the 9th, and the transfer was done on the morning of the 11th. And that can be documented. I can print you out a report that shows you exactly what time I did that if you feel you need it. I feel strongly that if a council person wants to inform the other council members of issues, correct information is a must. Incorrect information can only lead you to reading and making wrong decisions. But incorrect information has been given in regards to the trolley, edit, and lift. And there's also a correction made by both the mayor and myself in regards to statements made by Susan Gordon and Todd Caldwell. In the past, the claim was filed with the public access counselor against my office and myself. And after deliberations, he determined not to file his findings on the website. And the reason he felt that it was necessary to handle it that way, he saw that there was a lot of animosity between 2 people. And he felt putting it on the website would only increase the tension and urged both sides to work together. Later, certain portions of this letter, only certain portions of his letter, was printed in the Common. But what you need to know, that part of the reason he reached his decision was he was under the impression that this person needed, this council person needed this information in order to make decisions about passing claims on a docket. You as council people are not responsible for the docket. The Board of Works is. And that's okay. But that was incorrect in that sense. Passage of claims does belong. The responsibility does belong to the Board of Works. Later on, the comment referred to another suit being filed against the clerk's office, which I wasn't aware that night, but probably maybe 2 or 3 weeks later was. In time, after he reviewed that claim was dismissed. But the fact that it was dismissed did not appear in the Common. And here's an example for you what I deal with. There had been a request, and this is, I'm going to tell you, this probably brought the straw that broke the camel's back for me. There had been a request for a fund and appropriation report from December of 2020, and a fund and appropriation report for January of 21. At the time, I said that December was not balanced, and giving you that report would be giving you inaccurate information. Later, this council person said she didn't care, she wanted the reports. So, and I can produce documents for you if you need it, I explained that I can give you the reports from 2020. That's not an issue, but I cannot give you reports for 21 until the system has been rolled over. Trying to give you reports in 21 when the system has not been closed and rolled over would result in a mingling of those funds. You would have inaccurate reports. So until it was rolled over, closed out completely, and the new budget put in place, I could not give you those funds. I don't think that's hard to understand. And I don't think that it's unreasonable that someone had been preparing your books, had been preparing your funds and your appropriation report since 2009, does not understand it or do it correctly. So, I'm sitting at my desk working, and I'm happy. I'm in a good mood. And I get a call from my software company. And my software company called to inform me that a call had been placed to their help desk at Keystone by this council person. The standard procedure at Keystone, when you call into this help desk that I don't, if you guys weren't all here when the Board of Works questioned the claim about Keystone. We pay for the license franchise, but we pay for this help desk. And this help desk has terrific employees that I don't care what else. If they particularly can't answer that question, they get you somebody that can. It's solved right then. It's taken care of. And when you're sitting there in, for example, in the middle of payroll and something's not working right, you can't wait for an answer the next day or the next day. You gotta have that answer right there because those paychecks have to go out. So when you call in to the help desk, you have to tell that girl, the gal that's answering the phone, you have to tell her what your problem is and what you need. And then she puts it in the call box, and there it is. So what happened was that ended up, because that was not a clerk treasurer or a deputy clerk or a bookkeeper calling in for help, that went on to the owner. The owner's son runs the help desk. So I got a phone call. I had a choice to give that information, to give them permission to call that council person. Because the contract is with the city of Delphi and the clerk, president, clerk treasurer. Whoever's clerk treasurer signs that contract. And I told them, I went and consulted with Anita, our mayor, I'm sorry, and I felt it was absolutely fine. I knew what I'd said was right. So, Patrick Gallagher, who is the owner's son, gave a call back to the council person and informed them that what I told them about the reports was fine. I think what the council person did by making that phone call was suggesting that I could not be trusted to give correct information. And I find that humiliating and uncalled for. And Patrick Gallagher told me afterwards, when he related that he had called her and passed the information on, and it had been understood, he said, "I'm sorry, Leanne, and anything you need from us in the future, let me know, because this just doesn't happen." On 3 different occasions, there has been an offer to meet with this council person to try to settle some of this issues. Once by the mayor, after a very upsetting meeting, and no response. And 2 times, our city attorney has offered to do so. The last time, we offered several dates. In fact, I told the mayor, you put the dates down, you know my schedule with the bus route. Whatever date works best for you, I will be there. But none of those dates or times worked with this council person. And to my knowledge, at this time, there have been no other dates offered to you for this meeting?
There is no meeting set.
Okay. It just seems to me that if we want things done right, and we're so concerned that it's done right, not particularly our way, but the right way, it just seems to me that the very easiest way possible is that obviously there's a problem, and I know tonight I got defensive, but that's from a year. That's from a year of these emails. And I regret that I'm at a point it affects me that way. I should not have responded to Gail tonight when Gail had asked some questions a certain way. But it's when you feel that defensive all the time, it's a response. And what I want you to understand is not only this council person, but all of you. You can have your concerns and you can want reports or information about my office or any action. But let me explain to you, I answer to the State Board of Accounts. I answer to the citizens of this town, but I answer to the State Board of Accounts. The State Board of Accounts audits, and I have never had a bad audit. There is always going to be items found by the State Board of Accounts. But when those items are found, that's good because it's a way for any clerk treasurer to learn if you take it positively. And that's what they're paid to do, is to find something. The comment reported internal controls was noted on my last audit, but it was also on 2 other audits previously. This right now is a strong issue with the State Board of Accounts, and it will continue to be so as long as there are issues and problems. And it should be. For example, when I came into our clerk's office, we ran our cash register up front and took your money without having a cash register taped in the cash register. So how are you gonna balance your drawer if you don't even have a cash register? So there's tons of little things we've done to do for internal controls. On our website, we have a clerk's website, and a particular clerk wrote in and said she wanted some advice from all the clerks, because she didn't know what to do. Small town, she was the elected clerk treasurer, but she was also the only person working in that office. She had been written up for internal controls. How can you possibly have someone check your work on every point you go into, as we do now practically, if there's no one else in the building to check your work? So what do? Do I think, I would imagine right now, 9 out of 10 cities, towns get written up for internal control. This is my first time in 12 years that I'm seeking help from the council. Now, trust me, I know I'm not perfect. Never, ever have you heard me say that I can walk on water. But I do the best that I can do for both the city of Delphi and the residents. This past year has been a challenge for everybody. And COVID added another strain, both to our office as well as the whole building. I can't always respond to requests in a timely manner, as I would like, but I do respond as quickly as I can. Micromanaging by council is not helping me be more responsive, but simply adding to an already heavy workload. Were I not an elected official, some of the questions and the manners that I'm questioned this past year might be considered as bullying or harassment. But I'm an elected official, and so this is part of the territory. But it would be extremely helpful, however, if we could just get past this confrontational posture and constant information requests and constantly thinking that I'm doing something wrong deliberately, and work towards a sense of trust that I've always experienced with prior councils. That's it.
I still think that we can call it balance. Is that, Cameron?
Yeah, so many nights we get fire calls in the middle of the night, some of them are 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, midnight, on and on. The past several months, as she just said, I have seen, we've had some calls past midnight, close to midnight. And as we're back in the truck, and I look over and I see a little red vehicle there. So for someone to be working at midnight on a Sunday or a Saturday or a Friday or a Thursday, to keep up with the workload, my hats off to Leanne, hats off to all of you guys for what you do. It's a thankless job. Leanne has worked many nights over there past midnight, so she certainly deserves a lot of credit. That's all I got. Sorry, I can't talk this fast.
Yeah, sorry.
Any other comments?
How can we get past this right here? past this. Maybe it's not time to talk about it, but it's tearing her up. Excellent job, I've only been councilman for a little over a year, and have seen what she can do, and you don't walk on water, but you do a great job. There's only one person walking on water, and you're on bank, you're close. With the job that you do, how do we get past all that stuff?
Yeah, I think, here's something I should tell you too. It doesn't matter. This continues another 3 years, I really don't give a damn.
But you shouldn't have.
I really don't, because I'm gonna tell you what. I was elected, I ran for it, I was elected, and I'm gonna stay here.
Right.
So if that's your agenda to drive me out of that building up there, it's not gonna happen. I'm gonna stay. So if we can't change our attitude, and we can't approach it differently, and we can't find a common meeting ground, and we're gonna continue this way, then that's what we'll do.
You know you have my support for that.
Yes, thank you.
You're very appreciated, Ian. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.
No, you're very appreciated. You know, I do see you up there obviously all the time. Sometimes anyway, I see you up there.
Still haven't brought the dog up.
No, not yet. I'm not ready for that. He's not ready to meet Leanne. So I look into it. I kind of see from the outside. You know, I look at people. I can just see what demeanor. I can obviously see that this really upsets you. I do not appreciate any harassment whatsoever. I have to deal with it at my job. We are elected officials. I get it. It comes with the territory. But in order for us to move forward and stuff like that, we do need to work together. You know, millions of emails, I'm not elaborating, but millions of emails just slows down the process. It slows down the wheel, it puts, sticks in the spokes and all that, whatever, analogy you want to use. I am not appreciative of having progress stop. I am not appreciative of how employees get treated if it is a harassment issue. Obviously, we're elected, so there's no, claims that you can do with it. It is what it is. I don't appreciate some of the one-sidedness on some of the comments that are made in the paper. I do see that, but I usually bite my tongue on it. However, we do need to move forward with it, and if there is an issue, work it out, get over it, and let's move forward, because otherwise it just creates a huge tension and drama that we don't need. We see it all the time in any sort of news media outlet of drama, and what's it do? Absolutely nothing. It just creates a headache, and
It's negative.
it doesn't help us. So if there is an issue, I would suggest working it out as best as you can. If you don't trust each other, whatever, that's your prerogative. But, for the city's sake, move forward, period.
If you have an issue, like you said, make an appointment, talk about it. Have somebody there, if you're the third party. That's what we teach our
I
kids.
think we tried it again,
Yeah.
and for sure, for, today, that's, minimum people.
No, I don't wanna sit here and have issues where we're not getting stuff that we need because we're being bogged down. And, and you don't need to be working 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, period. You don't need to be doing
Well,
that.
hopefully with the man that I want to be.
Save the night shift light for the ones that work night shift. You have a life outside of work too. Great.
Well, we have two really strong, busy times of the year. And that's your end of the year and your financial report, and then that's your budget. So, there are other nights that I might be up there later, but I'm not, it's not that crazy, it's not every night. But when you're going through the end of the year and the financial report especially. And by the way, when the night that I submitted my report at 10:18, I also got on Gateway, and 72% of the clerk treasurers in the state of Indiana had filed. So more than a fourth still on file. So we were in good stead.
But like I said, I appreciate everything that you do on it, because I do see it. And, like I said, if there's issues, work it out as best you can, because I don't wanna sit here and watch us just argue and bicker back and forth, because then it turns into another issue that I won't say out loud, but it turns into
I am an eternal optimist. There is nothing that cannot be talked about. There is nothing that can't be handled in a professional way. I think everyone here has the city's best interests at heart. I think that we can channel it to have progress, and I am hopeful that everybody in the room feels the same way. I just don't think there's much of anything that's too far gone that can't be addressed. As long as everyone's respectful of each other.
Presentation means a lot too. I mean, you can't just go, I mean, obviously I told it depends on this here. You know, I've seen back and forth, present it well, and, you know, that goes further away too. Once again, you guys have to work that out. I can do that for you.
And one thing that you did mention, and I do underline, is requests for documents are not a bad thing. That's part of it, and those should be provided, and, reports and financial, all of that is, the right of folks to request, so, you know, it's not all,
No, but at the same time, if you send me, a very short email, a rough email, and you want certain ordinances, and the ordinances are on the website, so why should I
Sure.
have it for you? And then the ordinances are held by, I think, one of the ordinances she was wanting was RDC. I can't remember, it was some other organization's ordinances. I don't have them.
Sure.
And I shouldn't be expected to get them for you.
You know, and another thing is, I don't wanna see micromanagement from us, the other departments, you know, like the official, no, that's not about micromanagement. Period, it's not, no. We have department heads, their jobs, their employees, you know, we're here for budgeting, passing resolutions, and ordinances.
Yeah.
Regarding, documents, as of today, we'll begin posting all the fund and appropriation reports. As soon as those are available, they'll be on the website, they're on the clerk treasurer page, the right-hand side, so if you ever have information about that, there, find those.
And I recently was informed that another, clerk treasurer does that in another, it's a small city, smaller yet in Delphi. But she just posted everything on the website. So it's transparency, and it's a good idea. So, and it's so easy to do, so she posted 2 of them already today. That we have, so that's good.
So those go on, of course, the ordinances and resolutions are on the council meetings.
Public comment definitely thanks you for doing all of that. I mean, I love the new design of the website for the city, and you can find so much information now that it's easy for me when I get calls to refer them to the city's website. And yeah, it's not an easy feat that Leanne has endured to close the year out as successfully as she has, so kudos to you, whoever helped your numbers in one.
And we can get past this, we can all work together, we can cooperate with one another, we can build trust, and that's our duty, and what we must do for the citizens of Delphi and for each other. If we need to respect one another and to move forward in a positive direction for the city. Is there another motion?
Yeah.
So without objection, we are adjourned at 7:53 p.m.
short time,